My friends, this is my crash course on how to conduct powerful interviews. I remind myself and you that the purpose of an interview is not only to hire a person, but to actually create a brand ambassador who will promote your brand in your organization, even though you did not hire that person. That's the purpose of the real purpose, in my view, of an interview. Obviously, we hire people, but what happens to the ones that we don't hire? If you do it well, they will become your brand ambassadors in the marketplace, which is something which all of us can do with. Now, I call this the Hiring Winners Workshop. There's a book of mine called Hiring Winners, which is on Amazon. Do take a look at that. I'm going to use a practice called behavioral interviewing. And this is a very quick crash course on that. I'm happy to teach the course in person to anybody who wants to do that. Quick background, I have over now about 40 years of experience in working in organizations, working as a consultant to global corporations. I specialize in family business consulting and in leadership development consulting, and I'm a life coach, and I specialize also in mentoring people into positions of leadership. So I have a lifetime of experience doing that. I can't even remember now how many interviews I have conducted. I attended many of them myself. Practically every consulting assignment that I go to a new client is an interview. So I know this story from both sides of the table, being interviewed as well as interviewing. So this is a workshop, sorry, which is very, very experientially based, and I hope that you will find it useful. To use a old saying, where you say you can tell a book by its cover, may be true, but definitely you cannot tell a person. You cannot tell a person by their appearance. This is something which is something that fools people, and it's very important not to fall into that trap ourselves. Because the thing is that, remember, a person who comes to an interview comes prepared. And there are people who prepare others to go to interviews. One of the most common things people tell others is that if you are going to an interview in a particular company, study the company culture and go there dressed in a way which shows or which gives the impression that you are already working in the company. So a very quick sort of thumbnail sketch. For example, IBM, light shirt, dark tie. Microsoft, no tie, and so forth, right? So educated, within quotes, educated candidates will do their best to fit into the organization's known culture. So also language, demeanor, and all that. Second thing is all of us are, we are ourselves subject to prejudices and to our stereotypes, and so therefore we tend to like people who are more like us. So my religion, in the religion, my set of beliefs, my language, my country, my ethnicity, my nationality, race, color, language, economic status, what kind of schools, what kind of colleges, big names, Ivy League schools, and whatnot. Now, these can become very major faults in judgment, and very often they end up with wrong selection. So it is very, very important to say, it is said, and not without reason, that most untrained interviewers in a 1 hour interview make up their minds in the first 3 minutes, and then they spend the next 57 minutes justifying their choice. And believe me, this is not a not an exaggeration. Like they tell people, first impression is the last impression, meaning first impressions last. That is very true. And from the perspective of the interviewer, this is a big trap for you as an interviewer if you are going to allow that first impression to then color everything else you see with that candidate. And it works both ways. If the first impression was positive, then you are going to look at that candidate in a positive way no matter what else happens, no matter what other information comes up, you will try to discount that to justify your positive impression, and vice versa. If the first impression is negative, then any positive information that comes out of the interview, you are unconsciously going to discount it and discard it to your own cost. Because at the end of the day, you either lose a very good person or you hire a problem which is very difficult then to get rid of later on. I want to quote for you a wonderful saying. There's something rare, something finer and far better, something much more scarce than ability, and that is the ability to recognize ability. Interviewing is not a form of seduction or entrapment. You are not conducting a interrogation of a criminal. You're not trying to establish a crime, whether it was committed or not. You are meeting a person with the aim to see whether this person suits the job that you are hiring for. And you are going to do that by asking pertinent, relevant questions. Now, what happens are a lot of times, far more than I would like to admit, is that people hire less than themselves because they feel threatened by candidates who seem to be highly competent. Even though the candidate may not be necessarily threatening their job, but the people just feel threatened to hire people who seem to be or are more competent than themselves. The reality is that especially if you are an older person and you are hiring younger people, in today's world of fast-moving life, of fast-changing technology and so on, the younger person with a more current education is going to be more knowledgeable, especially with current knowledge, than you are. So if you are going to feel threatened with that, then you are in big trouble. Not the other person. You are in big trouble. So beware of your own prejudices. Remember, a well done interview is still the most reliable way to hire good people. Now, there are some common beliefs about interviewing. Many cases people feel that an interview, that following the first impression is the best way. Good interviewing is about how good you are with people, that good interviewing is an art, it cannot be taught, that women have an advantage over men because of women's intuition. It makes good sense to just hire anybody, try them out, and then you can chuck them out because, this is redundancy and attrition is part of life. All of this. Now, including, for example, panel interviews are terrible because they always create a lot of tension. All of these are false. Every one of these can be challenged. All of these are false. For example, let me just take the last one. Does a panel interview create stress? Yes, it does. Does it have to create stress? No, it doesn't. A panel interview is actually a very good way because then one person may miss something which the other person will not miss. And when you are taking notes, it is very useful that a person who is speaking to the interviewee is looking at them in the eye contact and speaking to them without worrying about missing out anything in taking notes while somebody else is taking notes. So it's not a given that any particular method is the best or the worst. It depends on how that method is used. So feel free to use whatever you like, but don't go by by our own prejudices and beliefs which are not based on fact. Now, the another big one is psychometric testing. People think that there is some magic formula by which you can make someone do a psychometric test, and because of this test, now you know exactly what's going on in the person's heart. This is, first of all, in many cases, especially in America here, psychometric testing for interviewing is illegal. So be very careful with that. Second thing is that psychometric testing is just a way of understanding some things about a person. It's definitely not. I absolutely do not like psychometric testing for interviewing at all. Psychometric testing is a good thing for later on for development of skills and attitudes and whatnot, but not for interviewing. It's been proved again and again that from research that the reliability of unstructured interviews is exactly as reliable as writing the names of the candidates on a dartboard and throwing a dart at it, and you hire the one the dart hits. It's as bad as that. The structured interview, which actually probes a person's previous experience and arrives at what they have actually done, which is measurable, is the best way to predict what they are likely to do in the future. So, the best way to predict what a person will do is to see what they have done. Beware of going by people's statements about about themselves. Oh, I'm a great team builder. Okay, it's fantastic, wonderful to know that. Please tell me an incident where you built a team. How did you start? What kind of challenges did you face? How did you deal with those challenges? Now, this is the kind of questioning that will help you to really arrive at the fact of whether this person does know anything about team building or he's just winging it. That is why a structured interview is so critically important. Now, what's the cost of a wrong hire? Before we go into the importance of hiring right, what's the cost of a wrong hire? 4 costs, which are like a bleeding peptic ulcer. It just bleeds you and kills you and reduces your productivity and reduces your profitability and destroys your culture. Cost of hiring wrong can never be really calculated in organizations. So like all hidden costs, they keep bleeding the reputation of the organization, the profitability and so on, and you don't know. Another fact which is not measured, as I said before, is that most people hire less than themselves, lower than themselves. Exceptional competence and quality seems to create anxiety in many hiring managers. And exceptional hiring managers are those who can recognize superior quality, superior to themselves, and they hire that quality. Now, it's very well known that it is more difficult to motivate low performers than it is to motivate high performers, because high performers perform well anyway, and which is why it is this that puts the most pressure on the superiors to have to justify their superiority by inspiring respect. So, but the pressure is very good because it constantly enhances the capability of the organization, and that's what I call creating positive stress by building internal mechanisms of discontent. So you hire great people, and those great people will keep pushing you upwards. If you hire people who are less than yourself, then you are really lowering the bar for your own development. I have friends, for example, not people I've hired, but my friends who, very few of them, but when they ask me a question, what book are you reading right now? What would you say is your latest learning in the last week? What book are you writing right now? Because I as you know, I'm also an author. So these are the kinds of people you need. Now, because if you didn't get that push, then I could just sit around and do nothing. But Alhamdulillah, I'm very happy that I have such people. So cost of hiring, the wrong cost of a wrong hire, you're paying for non-performance. You are uh, building in redundancy, so now you are going to pay for cost of replacement, cost of lost opportunity, and worst of it, a detrimental effect on others. The cost of destroying the culture of the organization, this is it's like a cancer, right? So very difficult to even talk about it. So be very clear. Right hiring is absolutely critical and has no alternative. Winners create a winning environment and they attract other winners, and losers create a losing environment and hire losers. Winners hire winners, losers hire losers. So if you find an organization with a bunch of losers in it, then look at the person who hired those losers, no matter who that person might be. Now, it's very interesting that excellent people may cost a little bit more, but they produce results which are far, far, far superior. What's not so easily measured, and perhaps even more important, as I mentioned before, is the effect of high performance individuals on the culture of the organization. People who are used to speed of response, people who go out of the way to help others and so on, they create an uplifting spirit in the organization itself, which is a hugely positive influence on the culture of the organization and vice versa. So, identifying the best is absolutely critical when you are hiring people. Now, word of caution. When you are making this your list of your so-called desired characteristics, beware of creating unattainable wish lists, right? You're not looking at the absolute perfection, doesn't exist. So differentiate between what you need to hire and what is even if the ideal might be something else. That do you really need that? Because the other side of this is, if you hire a highly competent person, a huge go-getter, a great winner, a person with the ambition and the willingness to work and do something, and put that person into your organization where the culture drags them down, where there are no challenges, where the person is in a routine kind of a job, you're going to demotivate that person and that person will leave. So beware also of your organization's reality, and by all means try to improve that, but also be aware of that, and then hire people, not just who will fit in, but who will develop your organization, take it up, but don't make sure the gap is not so huge that you end up with a problem on either side. Then differentiate between what you need to hire and what you can train in. I always say, hire values, train skills. Now, when I say train skills, I'm not talking about your organization is not a school. It's not a training school, unless it is. But if it is not a training school, if it's a commercial organization which is creating products and services for profit, then when we say train, we don't mean hire somebody with all the great qualities, but who does not know the job. No, when I'm saying train, I mean fine-tuning skills which they already have. But at the same time, you are going to hire for values and take some level of a delta between your ideal skill level and what the person comes with. The reason for that is values are extremely difficult to change. If you hire a person with the wrong values, then to get them to flip over is almost impossible. And that is why it is very important to hire people with the right values. You're not a counseling service. You're not a psychiatric hospital. It's not your job to tinker with people's minds. So make sure you have people. For example, if you have people with low integrity, people whose idea about what is right and what is wrong, people who are racist, for example, and things like this. Now, to get them to change that and to focus on honesty, focus on integrity, focus on truthfulness, focus on anti-racism, all of this is believe me, it's. I'm not saying it's not possible. I'm saying that you, as the operational manager, will not have the time to do it, even if you have the professional training, which itself you may not have. So don't go there. Make sure you hire a person with the right values that you need. And skills, they must have the right skills, but fine-tuning them, aligning them to your organization's way of working and culture. Yes, this has to be done on site. Now, as far as values are concerned, I recommend, and I'll give you some examples. Create what I call an operative definition of each value. So I just mentioned integrity. How do you know what is integrity according to you? Right? What is integrity according to you? And believe me, sometimes people say some very funny in the sense of peculiar things. I remember a statement made by one of my clients who said that according to me, integrity is we will not give money, but if a person wants, in that particular country, this was the norm. He says the person wants alcohol, then we will give them, bottles of whiskey or whatever it was. So, well, so what's integrity? Anyway, the point being that your organization, I'm not trying to tell you what integrity you should have, but I'm saying that your operative definitions for the values that you have are very critical for you to create and have them clear in your mind, because otherwise generally the terms we are using and which we will use and we have to use, because these are the only terms we have, are very general terms. So I've said team leadership. What exactly does it mean? High energy, what does that mean? Right? So that these operative definitions are very, very critical. Now, I'd like to use this wonderful quote from GE, where I've spent now I've been a GE consultant from 1994 onwards. Values drive behavior, behavior drives results. It's a wonderful thing that we used to use in GE, in Crotonville and elsewhere. Values drive behavior, behavior drives results. And I think this is such an important thing to keep in mind. That's why I say higher skills, higher values, and fine-tune your skills. Now, for the values, I recommend that you create what I call a quality screen. For this quality screen, first identify what I call the competencies. So what competencies do you need for the job that you are hiring? I've given you an example here where I have mentioned 5 competencies: risk-taking, inspiring, learning, achievement, motivation, and integrity. Now, this is an example. Every job, every value doesn't have the same. It depends on your organization and what you're hiring for. But remember that this quality screen is what you're going to be using to assess your candidates. So be clear about that. Be also clear about what you need to hire for and what you can train in. As I mentioned before, higher values, train skills. Sometimes also remember how long does it take to train the skills. You're not a training school, you're not giving training degrees, so be sure how much time, how much cost does that mean. Sometimes training in skills might take so long that obviously you say, well, just hire for skills, that's more cost effective. Hiring people who already have the right values and fine-tuning the skills is good, provided the fine-tuning doesn't take you or you can afford the time and energy and the cost of fine-tuning those skills. Now, I want to give you a little exercise where you can see, take each of these skills and say how can you fine-tune that skill. Just to give you a quick example, I've given you this chart here, achievement motivation. So if I'm looking for achievement motivation, what will I be looking for? I'll be looking for somebody who sets their own goals. If they have to, if their manager is setting their goals, then they take initiative with that, they got involved with that, they discuss that. They don't just sit there and say, okay, tell me what shall I do. No. Also that they are clear about metrics. What will define for me, what will tell me, what will tell my manager, whether I whether I am doing well, not doing well, going forward, the measurements in terms of time, measurement in terms of quantity, quality, and so on. Somebody who is willing to do a bit more than what their job description defines. So someone who's willing to go the extra mile, someone who effectively involves others. So is that person a real team person or just talks about team working on teams? And also, very, very important, what do they do when they have difficulties? I mean, the issue is obviously we will all have difficulties. So when there is a difficulty, how does this person solve it? Or do they come back and dump it in your lap and say, this is my problem, tell me what to do? So this is the kind of achievement motivation operative definition that I like to create. And remember, when I'm setting this operative definition, then I will have questions for each of these. So what question will I ask to find out whether a person sets goals for themselves? What is the questions that I will ask to see whether the person involves themselves in setting their own metrics? What question will I ask to see if they show evidence of having done more than whatever is in their job description, going the extra mile? What is the question I will ask to see whether they effectively involve others to accomplish a goal? And corollary to that, will they also give the others credit for working with them, or are they the kind of people who like to hog all the credit for themselves, right? What are the questions I will ask to give me evidence that this person does not hit a stone wall if they have a problem? So what are their problem solving skills? So all of these, once we set a framework, operative definition framework, then for each of those operative definition points, we must have also questions that we are going to ask. A structure is very, very, very important. Now, here's an interview guide, step by step. So, setting the stage. I'm not going to read all the points on the slide, but please, the slide will be there for you to see it. The key thing is to create an atmosphere of trust and make the candidate as comfortable as possible. The reason is because if you don't do that, then you will not get good responses or real responses. Every candidate, no matter who it is, no matter what level it is, will always be under some measure of anxiety. One of the things that I used to do for GE is I would screen senior management, general manager upwards candidates for GE businesses. So if a GE business, say GE Healthcare, was planning to hire somebody at a general manager or a vice president level or something, they would send that person to me. I would do a complete behavioral interview on that person and give a report, my report on that person, to the GE hiring manager, who would then either call them for a follow-up interview or do whatever they needed to do. So, the reason I'm mentioning this is because even people at that level, so you're talking about somebody who's who knows their job, they've done to get to a level of that. To get to that level, they come. You're not talking about people straight out of college, but still there is some level of anxiety, because anxiety not as in fear, but anxiety as in, well, I want the job, that's why I applied for it. So naturally, if you, by your own conscious behavior or unconscious behavior, the atmosphere you create, if you raise that anxiety, you are going to get garbage responses. So don't do that. Make sure that the candidate is as comfortable as possible, so that you can get some real life responses. Also, beware of talking too much in an attempt to appear friendly and so on, because this actually creates sometimes an opposite effect. It's like saying, why is this person talking so much? Then your job is to get the candidate to talk, and so that you can get as much useful information from the candidate as possible, not tell your life story to the candidate. Note taking is absolutely critical. It's almost impossible, no matter how wonderful you think your brain is, it's almost impossible to retain all data in sequence in memory alone, especially if you are interviewing multiple people on the same day, which happens in almost all cases. So data that you don't write down will either get lost or will get distorted in your mind and lose its integrity. And then you will have either a halo effect or a contrast effect, and we look all these terminology. But the point is, the cure for that is to take notes. Now, be sure to ask the permission of the candidate before taking notes. Tell them, I want to retain everything I hear from you, so I am going to be writing. When I am writing, I will obviously look down, but please continue to talk. You must say that because it's very distracting for people while they are talking to see you looking down and writing something. Usually, depending on the seating, they can't see what you are writing, so it is very distracting. So tell them what you are doing and tell them why you are doing that, and then of course continue to speak and write. Make sure of privacy, no interruptions, no phone calls. What else? Talk less. If you are talking more than 15% of the time, you have blown the interview. So don't do that. Ask open structural questions which you have prepared in advance, and be that's why non-judgmental, and that will happen only if you take notes. So when you're taking notes, write down what the person is saying, not your own impressions. Greetings and introduction, very well. I always make it a point that when the candidate, when you are ready to interview the candidate, get up from your seat, go to the door, invite the candidate, bring them in, sit them down, then go back and sit in your seat. This is good exercise for you, but do that. And then when the interview is over, get up and walk them to the door. Don't just sit there and say, send this one, send that one. Okay, the interview is over. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Goodbye, go home, get out. No. Be very polite, very nice. Doesn't matter who the candidate is. Get up and bring them in, bring them out. As I told you, the purpose of the interview is to let that candidate go. The one that you did not hire, you want that person to be your greatest brand ambassador. That would not happen unless you are polite and you go out of your way to be good to people. Preparation. You, as the interviewer, everything which I am going to tell you just now, you are going to do before you enter the interview room. Please understand, it is impossible, according to me, to overemphasize the importance of preparation, because this is the most neglected phase of the interview. Most people don't prepare. Time spent in preparation is very well spent, but most people lose out this potentially very powerful, very useful stage in the interview, which is preparation. Now, 5 important things. Number 1, review the job screen. What is this job? What are you hiring for? Specific things. Number 2, quality screen, which is the competency which I mentioned to you. Number 3, your paperwork. Did you see that person's CV? What did you look for in the CV? What notes did you make, and so on. Number 4, plan your time. And I'll give you a guide on how to plan the time. Make sure you plan this time. As a just a thumb rule, a behavioral interview will take you between 1 hour and 1 hour, say 30 minutes, right? So be prepared for that time. Now you might say, well, no, this is too long. It's not too long. You're looking at hiring somebody who is going to stay in your organization for multiple years, right? Multiple years. Even if they don't spend their whole life in your organization, their whole working life, they're definitely going to spend, we hope, you hire a good person and they stay with you for a long time. It is worth all those years for you to spend that 1 hour interviewing that person. And finally, plan your comprehensive questions, your opening questions, and your all the operative definitions, and based on that, what questions you're going to ask. Do all of this before you enter the interview room and have them written down on your notepad. So don't go in unprepared. That's very, very, very important. I've given you a chart here. Take a look at that. On the x-axis we have, of course, the date of the name and the person. Then work history, education, self-evaluation, and interest. So these are the 4 areas that you're going to be asking about. On this, use the thing as a matrix, and say, for example, in work history, ask at least one question to give you information about the quality parameters. So in this case, I've used the same parameters I gave you, which is team leadership, customer orientation, results orientation, flexibility and adaptability, and analytical thinking. So on these parameters, how will you assess the person? So in work history, what is the question you're going to ask which will give you an insight into their team leadership? What is the question you will ask which will give you an insight into their customer orientation? What will give you an insight into results orientation? What will give you an insight into their flexibility, adaptability, problem solving ability, and so on? What will give you an insight into their analytical thinking and ability? Now, in terms of work history, in terms of education, again, or through that. So this is the framework you will use, and make sure that you, where necessary, follow up with more probing questions to try to get more and more real data in support of the statement that the candidate may be making. Now, in terms of time allocation, this is not a hard and fast rule, but just a sort of thumb rule. Maximum time spent on work history, and the rest of it is depending on what you want. So the introduction, maybe 5 minutes, then work history is the big chunk, so 30 to 50 minutes, and then of course education and training, self-evaluation, other interests, and then the closing of the interview. So this is the overall framework that you will be using for this purpose. Now, I've given you a brief structure of the time allocation for a behavioral interview, and as you can see, the basic rule is the chunk of the time must go in work history, because that's what you're looking for. What did this person actually do, results, metrics, and so on, which is the best indicator of what they are likely to do once they come work for you. Now we have different things, sources of information. I'm giving you just one example. So work history, education, self-evaluation, and so forth. Now in work history, look for the accomplishments and transitions, right? What did they do and why did they change? The reasons that they give you for transition are often good indicators of attitude, and they can have a critical bearing on your hiring definition. This applies both to work history as well as education. In self-evaluation, you are looking for ambition, but usually people have this thing of saying, "Oh, next 5 years I want to be sitting in your seat." Well, I get up and sit now. What's 5? I mean, that's like, so don't get taken in by that kind of stuff. So you're looking for ambition, but with realism and the willingness to accept development needs, the willingness to also understand that you have to work hard, you have to, show results and so forth. And look for a game plan for self-improvement? Do they have any plan in terms of enhancing their own skill levels, enhancing their own learning and so on? And do they have a track record of having pursued that in the past? This is very important because if a person is not spending their time and money, I'm not talking about going to company-sponsored training courses, those are bonuses, but their own time and money, if they're not willing to spend on themselves in order to enhance their own skill level and their own understanding and their own education, then that is not the person you want to hire. What kind of books are you reading? What books do you read? How many do you read in a month, in a year? What are name some books that you read in the last 1 year, in the last 1 month? So all these kinds of these questions, and then of course depending on what they tell you, what they read, it gives you an idea of their own understanding, their own philosophy. As far as interests and avocations, these are indicators of team working ability, social responsibility, and they give us useful information about the ability to create a work-life balance and the ability to cope with stress. Now, very important, get the candidate to talk and let the candidate keep talking. So, sell the importance of mutual candor. Say, look, this is not we're not trying to trap you here. We're not trying to seduce you into accepting this job. Either way, let us be frank, because it's important for us to be open and not have surprises for either party, when and if you join. That's why the comprehensive opening statement is a good way to achieve this, and by way of explaining to both parties why it's important to talk and important to be frank with one another. Now, by all means, develop a comprehensive opening statement for yourself as you go forward. It will be a useful thing to do. So, few things in terms of getting the person to talk. Number one is the opening statement. This is the reason we want to make sure that we have all information. We believe that the more information we have, the better decision we can take, and therefore please be frank, please be open, feel free to say whatever you want to say, all of this kind of stuff. Second thing is open-ended questions. The difference between an open-ended and a closed-ended question is, the open-ended question is one that cannot be answered just by saying yes or no. Did you go to the Maldives? Well, that's a closed-ended question. Yes or no? When you went to the Maldives, what is it that you liked about Maldives? Now, this cannot be answered with yes or no, so the person is going to give you more information. Did you ever have to deal with a difficult boss? Yes or no? Closed-ended. Don't ask that. When you dealt with a difficult boss, how did you deal with a difficult boss? If you are advising somebody about dealing with a difficult boss, what would you advise them? That kind of open-ended questions. The idea is we want to try to get as much information as we can from the individual. Facial expression, and I know it's difficult to, this is where you need to have some practice, and that's why try and practice before a mirror. Keep your face neutral, friendly. Don't scowl. Sometimes we do things unconsciously, we're not aware of that. But that's why it's important to do this kind of stuff, practice in front of a mirror, which gives you a better feel for it, or have somebody look at you and maybe give you some feedback later on. Posture: sit in your chair, erect, relaxed. Voice also soft, confident. Don't become aggressive. Gestures, basic general sort of confident gestures, deliberate. Don't do distracting things. People have a habit of pulling this, pulling that, pulling the ear, whatnot, hand before the face, or the leg is shaking like this, as if you've got some Parkinson's or something. Don't do things like this. Do not make any distracting gestures or distracting mannerisms. So in an interview, the more self-aware that you are, the better off you will be. As I mentioned, ask open-ended questions, don't talk for more than 15%. We say 15%, these are all numbers, but point being, minimum talk from you, maximum from the other person. Be as non-judgmental and neutral as possible. Be aware of your expression. Don't telegraph desirable answers. Right? I'm sure you like to come early to work. I'm sure obviously, what do you think the person is going to say? I'm sure you don't mind if you stay back a little bit once in a while. So things that never translate. What is your opinion about staying back after work if you have to? Instead of saying, putting it in a way where you are telegraphing an answer. Encourage confidence. You please be as frank as you can. Tell us things as you are. We are going to be as fair as possible. We are not prejudiced in favor of or against anybody. Things like this. And very, 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 very important. Notes. Please do not do any interview where you are not taking notes. You must absolutely take notes. I'm going to go quickly through all these steps. The introduction, 5 to 10 minutes. 10 minutes is probably long, so try to keep it short. Relaxed atmosphere. If you have the time, especially senior manager interviews, offer some tea or coffee or something if they want to drink, and maybe some water. No interruptions. Make sure of that. They can only happen with you because it's your office. So make sure you don't have any interruptions. Don't start off the introduction with the job itself. Make sure the atmosphere is friendly. Open-ended questions. Your statement being, the importance of being frank and candor, and then make your opening statement. Please understand, a tense atmosphere is self-defeating. It's not an interrogation. It's not a crime investigation. Keep it relaxed. Keep it social. Keep it relaxed. Keep it friendly. The global question, as I said, please make sure. Please develop your own words, your own language. The idea is the statement is meant to clear the mystery about the process of the interview and set the stage for candor and honesty as your approach. It tells the individual that it's in their best interest to be frank and open and be themselves, no play acting, so that good information can be shared, which will be useful for both parties to see whether or not they have a good fit. This is in everybody's favor. So you say that, for example, you might say, we believe that the more we can learn, the better we can fit the person to the job. So therefore, I want you to tell me everything you can about your work experience, education, other interests, and try to be as frank and open as possible. And then we go through the whole job, the work history, 30 to 50 minutes. Why did you start with your, you might say, well, start with your last job or start with your earliest job. Why did you take the job? What kind of job was it? What were you supposed to do? Duties and responsibilities, accomplishments. Did you win any awards? Did anything special happen in that sense? And then look for analytical ability. Why this? Why that? Did you solve any problems? Did you take any initiatives? Did you start any projects? What did you like about the job? What did you not like about the job? And then when they transition to the next job, tell me, well, why did you change? What was it? What did you get promoted? Did you decide to leave the company? What happened? And in terms of your leadership experience, how were you with your superiors? How did you supervise anybody? How did you find that experience of supervising other people, being responsible for other people's work? How do you take to, if you are given independence, how did you like that being independent? Did that frighten you in any way? Actually, I don't want to ask that question, did it try? Because again, it becomes a closed-ended, yes, it did, no, it didn't. You say, well, what do you find about being independent? What do you find could be, I don't want to use the word frightened, but you know what I mean. What would have caused you some tension, perhaps? What was it that you really liked about it, and so forth, and then ask, of course, in terms of any career changes, any changes of path. Why did you change that, and what happened? And then how did you do each job, and then do this for each job, like dislikes, and then summarize, and then you move forward. Now, be very important. It's very important to understand. Be comfortable with silence. Ask a question and keep quiet. Tell me something about your first job. Zip up. Don't say anything more. What happens with a lot of people is that the other person, when you ask a question, he or she needs to think and come up with incidents and come up with details to talk to you. That takes time. Now, people get anxious, the speaker gets anxious, the interviewer gets anxious, and then he will ask question after question after question to try to. Tell me about your first job. I mean, where was it? Which place? This. No, don't ask any more questions. Just ask one question, zip it up, and wait for the person to answer. Make sure your face is friendly. Look at the person. If you want, maybe write a couple of notes in your book. But leave that person alone. If they need to ask you, they will ask you. Right? People, when they are thinking, some people they shut their eyes, some people they look up, some they look down. All of this will happen. It doesn't mean they are telling you lies. It doesn't mean they are cooking up anything. It's just the way that you're trying to access the hard drive in your brain. So make sure you give them that opportunity. Be genuinely interested. It's not about pretending. Appear to agree or understand. Again, you're not deceiving anybody. They say something, yes, no, yes, no. Don't get shocked. Don't show disapproval. Oh my God, how can you say that? Oh, I didn't realize this. No, be clear, be open, and say that. Reinforce and reward. Oh, thank you very much. That's interesting. Oh my God, did you do that? Amazing. Must have been exciting. I'm amazed. You did this fantastic thing. How old were you? Oh wow, fantastic. This way you are getting them to open up and talk down. If they say and talk more, and if they say something which is kind of unfavorable, just leave it. I mean, don't argue. Don't get involved in that. You can form your own opinions later, but expressing disapproval of any negative judgment tends to discourage people from talking. So if they read something, oh my God, you did that? How could you have done that? That's it, the end of conversation, right? So open that. It's an interview. It's simply a place for you to get information, nothing else. You're not there to exchange ideas. You're not there to socialize. You're not there to convince or influence the candidate. You're not there to convert them to your way of thinking, nothing. You're just getting information. And the more information you can get, the better off you are. In education, again, maybe 15 minutes or so. So thank you very much for that, which is the work experience. Now let's come to your education. From your high school up through college, tell me about what did you learn, what subjects did you do, what kind of grades did you get, any special accomplishments, if you chose some grade, why, and so on. Some people might say, well, I just did the subject, this was the curriculum, so I did that. Okay, let's move on. But if they were able to choose why this, why that, what other options were there, you did not choose a particular thing, why not? Right? For example, you might say, I had 5. We had the option of several languages. Which languages? You chose this one. What is the reason? Why did you choose that one? But don't say, why did you choose that? No, very nice. Oh, fantastic, very excellent. So you chose to learn Spanish. Why Spanish? You could have learned French as well. Oh, I live in America, so Spanish is spoken more than French. If I had lived in Canada, maybe I would have chosen French. Yeah, okay, that's great. That makes sense. So that kind of stuff. What were the best subjects? What were the poorest? grades, rank scores, extracurricular activities, uh, leadership roles, all of that kind of stuff. Did you, if you were on a sports team, did you coach? Did you have the opportunity to coach? Were you coached? How was your experience of being coached? How was your experience of coaching if you had done that, and so forth? Right? You're basically looking for reasons why they chose things, why they did things. Then we come to a very important. I want to explain to you. Listening is an absolutely critical element as far as good interviewing is concerned. Inexperienced interviewers get anxious, as I mentioned to you, about with silence. And while the interviewee is thinking about their question, they interrupt with new questions in order to clarify, which is their assumed misunderstanding. This slows down the whole process, and very often it even telegraphs the kind of answer you may like to get, and lo and behold, you get it. So people need to think and they recollect incidents from the past, which is what you ask them to do. So let the silence remain. If, however, you find that there is a genuine lack of understanding, then ask, would you like me to clarify anything in my question? If they say yes, rephrase the question. If they say no, leave it. But don't assume that they need some clarification and then ask question after question. I've seen this happen too often, so don't do that. Now, I call these my 7 keys to listening. Number 1, don't talk. As far as possible, talk as little as possible. Number 2, as I mentioned to you before, a person will look away, look down, look up, shut their eyes. Be prepared for that. You don't have to do anything. Don't interrupt with another question, and keep on taking notes. It's very important. Now, when you're taking notes, write down what the person said. Don't write your reactions. Right? This is not an assessment phase. This is the information gathering phase. So make sure that you are doing information gathering correctly. Don't get into I like this, I don't like that. No. Then smile, look encouraging, nod. Don't telegraph your internal reactions, agreement, disagreement, like this, like nothing. And then be comfortable with silence. So this is very, at the risk of repeating, I'm saying this because I've seen these mistakes happen again and again. So please make sure that you don't make those mistakes. Then we come to the self-evaluation part. Again, 5 to 10 minutes. Now, here you are listening for sincerity, and ask yourself, how will I know the person is being sincere? Number 1. Number 2, you're also looking for a person's genuine desire to improve themselves, to learn more, which means a humility that, yes, I need to learn. You don't want, you want to see if the person is an arrogant person who feels they know everything, because that can have problems in your workplace. So tell them, when thinking back about your jobs, what do you think a job must have to give you satisfaction? Tell me about a job in which you are most satisfied. Why were you satisfied? The opposite. Tell me about a job in which you were not satisfied. Why were you not satisfied? What do you think would be your major strengths? How do you arrive at that? Why do you say that is a major strength? Give me an example where you use this strength in your workplace, in your social life, at home. What do you think you have some development areas? Don't use the word weakness. Weakness is a kind of negative word. Development area. Which areas would you like to develop more? What have you done to develop those areas? What's the, some evidence of the person having spent some time, energy, money, resources to develop themselves? So that's what you're looking at. Then we come to, finally, follow-up questions, any reminders, any clarification you need. So decide what more you need to know. This is where note taking becomes a big asset for you, because it gives you have retained the data, and it gives you pointers to what more you need to probe in, which areas you need to ask more questions and get more information. Then other interests. What do you do other than work? Why is that interesting? What are you doing today that will help you to achieve your ambition? Why is it important for you to do this kind of work? and so forth. So I usually like to look for what we call extension motivation, which is the willingness to help, the, the willingness to volunteer, some evidence of the person showing interest in the overall community, in society, in the town that they live in. For example, do you volunteer in the school? Do you volunteer in the library? Do you volunteer for any public things that happen? And so forth. So these are things which are important to ask. Then finally, to the end, beware of making promises that you cannot keep. It's very important. Sometimes recruiters make all kinds of promises. They have no authority to do that. They do that. People are the interviewee is absolutely delighted. If he thinks he's come to heaven, and then later on, once they are hired, a few months into the job, a year or two, they discover that all of this was just window dressing, and it was a demo version, and actually life is not that easy, and we have trouble. So once you've come to this stage, now you make your final sales pitch, where this is the job, this is why we want you, and so forth. Be real, don't overpromise, underdeliver, and then close by saying what is going to happen next. So this is the first interview. You're going to go through a second one before the decision is made, or this is the interview. We will write back to you, and you will get a reply within 7 days. Whatever is your state, please mention that. Don't create don't overstate reality, or understate reality, or create imaginary scenarios in your anxiety to appear attractive as an employer. Say it like it is. If you have to err, then do on the conservative side. That is always much better. And then say thank you very much. If there is a next step that you need them to take, then tell them what that is. Tell them by when they can expect to hear from you, and also tell them if there is any additional information if they need to provide to you. And then say, is there anything that you would like to ask me about this job or about the company? And once it's over, say thank you very much for coming and spending this time with us, and then stand up and walk them to the door. Don't sit there and send them away. So this is very important. The most important thing, the holiest of all laws, take notes. This is very, very important. If you don't take notes, remember, you can be assured that you will make a bad choice. So do not do that. It's absolutely critical to take notes. Now, about good note taking, just some pointers, some thought share. Number one, write their words, actual words. Don't write your interpretation. I think he is afraid. No. Write the actual words, because when you are analyzing after that decision making point, those words will give you clear pointers. Second one is write your questions, especially follow-up questions. What question did you ask? Write that question also. Then write any new things that they say, especially if they said something in the beginning and then they changed that. Make sure you make a note of that. And of course, you can let them see that you are writing. Don't put your the pad under the table or something. And always first seek permission to take notes, and you say why. I mentioned this in the beginning of this video as well, but that's very important to do that. It's a legal requirement as well. If you're going to be recording something, remember, it is illegal to record without the person's knowledge. So don't try to just turn your phone on and leave it there and record it. That is illegal. You can get yourself into some serious legal problems. Don't do that. If you need to record, tell them, do you mind if I record something to help me to record it? Just say yes, do it. If they say no, don't do it. Now, here are some open-ended probes, some wording that you might like to use. So, just want to share that with you. For example, say, tell me how you managed to do this. How do you feel about that? What led you to do that? Open-ended. You were happy in this job. What made you happy? You were unhappy. What made you unhappy? Invite the probe is an invitation for the candidate to delve deeper and give more detail so that you have more information. Now, please remember, be patient and allow for the behavior like looking away, looking down, this, that. All this will happen because people have to collect real life incidents and make sure they have real life incidents to give you. As you go forward, develop your own probes depending on the kinds of jobs you hire for. If you have been taking notes, all you need to do is go back into your notes and look at them, and you will get enough probes, and you will get the best responses for them. To contrast between closed-ended and open-ended, as well as what I call hard probe or direct and softer, which is always better. Why did you leave the job? That's like instead of saying what made you look for a change. Why do you think you had trouble with your boss? What were the areas of difference with your boss, with your supervisor? So things like put it in different words, the same thing, but which is more soft and which is more open-ended. Softer questioning opens up helps the person to open up more and to talk more frankly, whereas hard questioning puts them on the spot. So, for example, why did you take a pay cut? Instead of that, saying what were the advantages in the new job that made it worth the pay cut? That kind of a question, which is softer and helps the person to speak more. Now, there are 3 or 4 key mistakes that people make. One is selective attention, which is that hearing only some things which fit your hypothesis. As I told you, the first impression is a dangerous thing. So if you have a positive impression about somebody, then you listen to only positive things, or vice versa, right? Or undervaluing positive information, oversensitive, negative, and so on. So clear your mind and focus on the interview. If your mind is occupied with something else, then you will lose attention, and you will lose good information in the interview. Second one is selective judgment, which is prejudices. The way prejudices color our perception. So as soon as you see the person, you decide, this guy is no good, or somebody who dresses like this can't be any worth anything. Oh, fantastic! This person looks like the ideal person to be the CEO of the company. Don't form these impressions. Making decisions too early. That's why they say that in a 1-hour interview, untrained interviewers, I mentioned this before, I'm repeating it, untrained interviewers make up their mind in the first 3 minutes, and then they spend the next 57 minutes justifying their original assumptions that they made. This is a very, very bad thing to do, very easy to do, and very common, so don't do it. So selective attention, selective judgment. The third one is, there are 2 things. One is called the halo effect, and the other one is called the contrast effect. The halo effect is when you allow one quality, for example, an attractive person, now you allow that attractiveness, well dressed, handsome, nice, looks nice, a good demeanor, good face, good smile on the face, confident, and now this overshadows everything else. So you automatically, unconsciously, you assume this person is also trustworthy, also efficient. Remember, the greatest con men in the world and con women are the people who were able to get the confidence of the people very quickly. So they became very trusted, and that's how they were able to defraud them of millions. So it's just because a person looks trustworthy doesn't mean that they are trustworthy. Whether they are trustworthy or not is for you to find out in the interview by eliciting more and more information. So make sure you check for everything instead of making costly mistakes. First impressions are lasting impressions, and from the interviewer's perspective, they are very dangerous. So don't discount it and don't swallow it. Keep it where it is, and then check for every one of those things. Contrast effect is the opposite, whereas hirers tend to assess candidates based on their perceived quality of other candidates. So if you have a bunch of bad candidates in a day, a person who's kind of slightly good will look much better than normally what they would have looked like. Like as this is among the blind, the one-eyed man is king. But the reality is that he also has one eye. Doesn't have two eyes. So people appear to be better or worse based on who else you interviewed in that day, in that time. So be aware and be aware of this and consciously assess each candidate on their own merits. Be aware that this halo effect and contrast effect are very important things which happen. Finally, influence of misleading signs. So a person's glibness, the way the clothes they wear, whether they have a beard or don't have a beard, depending on your own your own preferences. Their clothing, the way what kind of clothing they are wearing. Your own culture, your religion, your prejudices, your lifestyle, your language, all of these and more influence you to choose or not to choose a candidate, which has nothing to do with the candidate's actual suitability. So you need to be prepared with your questions and you must take notes. The bottom line is that interviewing is the single most powerful process for creating and influencing organization, climate and culture, because the kind of people you interview and you hire, these are the people who are going to make the kind of organization you want. So if you hire the wrong kind of people, you are destroying yourself. So it's very important, therefore, to spend the time that is required and to deal with that interview with the seriousness that it needs, because the effects last a very long time. I say this to people all the time. When they say, oh my God, I have to spend an hour and a half with one person, I say yes, because that one person is going to spend the next 15 years with you in your organization, building it or ruining it. So make sure that you are not the reason why the organization gets spoiled, gets a bad hire. The cost of a bad hire is way, way, way more than the cost of spending an hour and a half in a good interview. As I mentioned before, interview is not only about hiring, it's about brand building, and it's one of the most cost-effective ways of brand building. That's why I want to end with this. The best interview is when the one you did not select becomes your best brand ambassador. Finally, those of you interested, this is my book, Hiring Winners. It's on Amazon, and you need a link there. Most welcome. Please read. Please watch this interview. Share with us your comments, and I hope you find this useful. And if you need anything more from me, I'm here. Thank you very much, and thanks for spending this time with me.